Thank you for joining us. I'm Marni Hughes in Chicago, and this is Missing on NewsNation. Each week, we cover missing person cases from across the country, no matter their race, religion, background, or circumstances. Every missing person matters to us, and we know it means a lot to you. And with your help, we offer family and friends hope, answers, and sometimes closure. Before we get to this week's featured case, we have several other missing updates to tell you about. There are some questions still surrounding the case of a Marine missing from Camp Pendleton. The Naval Criminal Investigation Service says they made contact with Corporal Charles Alex Benfield. He is safe, that's the good news, but his sister tells NewsNation they still don't know where he is. Benfield was reported missing after a night out in downtown San Diego. He had just re-enlisted for 4 more years this past fall. The family became concerned when he didn't show up for work. His phone was dead and his bank accounts had been drained. Benfield's sister tells us they believe he's traveling towards Arizona on foot. We'll keep following this case and bring you updates as we learn more here at NewsNation. We also have an update in another case we've been following. Police have located a missing DoorDash driver in the Chicago area. Elijah Okanala is safe and thankfully back with his family. The 24-year-old vanished after dropping off his mom for work. His family spent a week desperately trying to locate him and get in touch. Police are not releasing any details about where Elijah was found, other than the fact that he is okay and he has been reunited with those who care about him. Our case this week takes us to Massachusetts and the search for Brittany T. Brittany is 35 years old, 5'6", 120 pounds. She has brown hair and blue eyes. And on the night of January 10th, 2023, Brittany walked out of the door of a home where she was sharing with her boyfriend. And Brittany simply vanished. Her family wonders if her vibrant, caring personality made her a target. The only thing they know for sure is Brittany would not leave her life behind. Now police are asking for the public's help to connect the dots.
Oh, she's stuck in the tent. I'm stuck. Uh-oh.
The fun aunt, Brittany T, playing with her niece and nephew.
Wow, Tegan.
Anything the kids did, she'd do.
Yeah.
And vice versa,
She's the one that's getting down on the ground on her hands and knees and, just being fun. Don't worry, everyone.
The kids now struggling to understand what happened to their favorite playmate.
They thought initially she was on vacation and forgot to tell us where she was. But as it goes on, they realize she's really missing.
Investigators say the 35-year-old left the house where she lived with her boyfriend in Brookfield around 8:30 on the night of January 10th, 2023, and simply vanished.
Check your video, check your garages, check your sheds. Anything that is a spot where a person may look to get out of the elements.
Investigators released these surveillance photos from days before the disappearance, showing the black jacket and hoodie Brittany was believed to be wearing. But more than a year later,
we know she left the house. Where she went after that, that's still a mystery. We don't have the answers.
Susan T says she spoke to her daughter on the phone just half an hour before her disappearance.
We had a brief conversation and she started to cry. And I asked what was wrong and she said, "Oh, nothing, Mom. We'll talk about it later."
When she couldn't reach Brittany for 2 days, she got worried and texted the boyfriend.
And he called me back very shortly after saying, "What do you mean? How is Brittany doing? Isn't she with you?"
They immediately went to the house and discovered her Jeep with her purse and keys still inside. Her boyfriend said he thought Brittany had gone to her mom's.
He knew she was speaking to me, and he thought that she was asking me to come pick her up.
Investigators say the boyfriend has cooperated fully.
We're getting pretty consistent stories from different people. And as far as the boyfriend goes, he's been very cooperative from the beginning.
Brittany's family admits she struggled with alcohol dependency, but was working hard to get better.
What is she like thinking of? I know. Are you on a motorcycle or something?
These photos taken just 2 weeks earlier at Christmas.
Her skin was better. She had a lot more energy. She was being silly with the kids. I felt like I had my sister back.
We can't imagine what could have gone wrong in 2 weeks, and she's gone.
The DA would not confirm whether Brittany's phone had pinged after her disappearance, but says multiple searches have left no stone unturned.
They've been relentless with the investigators have been relentless with the searches. Helicopters, drones, K9 units, civilian search teams.
Brittany's family is confident she would not have walked down that unlit road alone in the freezing cold.
She had just spoken with my mom a half hour prior, and she was clear as a bell. She was not intoxicated or altered in any way.
They say Brittany worked at the local liquor store where she became friends with the customers.
She's kind and loving and funny, and people are drawn to her personality. And we're just afraid maybe the wrong person was drawn to her personality and she was too trusting. Did the wrong person come by and she got in the wrong vehicle?
Oh, another card.
I know, I don't have your card.
How did you find this?
Oh, well, that's good. See,
Best day ever.
Her family just hoping someone with information will come forward.
we're hoping that they will find it in their hearts to come forward and let us know where she is.
You just hear the pain in that mother's voice, thinking about this entire family right now as they search for answers around this mystery. Brittany is a sister, a daughter, an aunt. You could see how much fun she had with her family. They want her back desperately. Joining us now is Law Olmstead. He's the president of the Missing Persons Center to talk more about this case. Law, welcome back, and thank you for looking into this investigation with us. What stands out to you first about the evidence that police have put forth so far, a year plus after Brittany's disappearance?
Well, one of the biggest things that, for me, looking at it from an investigative standpoint, is the fact that I understand her purse and her car keys were found in her vehicle. That seems kind of odd to me, because if her vehicle was running well enough to get to her mom's house, which was about 15 minutes away, why didn't she take her car? Why did she leave the vehicle there? Was there something wrong with the vehicle? Was it out of gas? That is really a big question for me. And then we don't really know the direction that she left the house, is what I'm understanding. So we really don't know where she could have been heading. I'm also hearing a lot about that she was very trusting. She was having some sort of emotional situation prior to leaving. I'd really like to know a little bit more about what that situation was. And I would imagine that situation had something to do with the boyfriend, but we haven't heard a whole lot about that. So those two elements right there are very concerning to me. And I wish we had some more information being shared on those topics.
Yeah, all we know, the family has been in touch with the boyfriend. They don't suspect him. They think that he has nothing to do with it. Police seem to be on that same page. But these investigations are fluid, right? And we learn more as time goes on. How challenging is it for law enforcement? They've done ground searches. They've done air searches. As more than a year has passed by, for them to continue to get leads in a case like this.
Well, it's going to, the longer any case goes on, it's definitely more challenging to get new leads. I think one thing that will help, from an investigative standpoint, is if Brittany was, struggling with some alcohol issues, if she was going to any kind of groups or getting any kind of counseling, I would say start looking around those circles as well. And what you typically find when there's like somebody who has an obsession with someone after the fact that they go missing, oftentimes that person will start behaving differently. So if there's somebody within her circle of influence, within her friends or peer group that is acting differently, maybe not coming around as much, maybe coming around more, maybe asking a lot more questions, maybe acting a little bit more emotional about the situation than they normally would, those are things to start looking at. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of tips rolling in on this case if they haven't already after a year. The case to me is very, very cold, and there needs to be some new things really dug up very quickly. And another thing to think about too is sometimes when we're looking all over the place for a missing person, trying to find out where they went, sometimes they're very close and underneath our nose, maybe even on the property somewhere. Maybe they never even left. So it'd be interesting to find out if Brittany ever had any ideations of self-harm or anything like that. I know these are very, very tough questions to ask and address, but they really help in trying to figure out where to go from here, because there's really been no new information.
Yeah, I think to that point, a lot of families are desperate for any clues, any evidence and answers. So you have to go down some dark roads, even if they are unlikely, just to rule that out. In a case like this, what about that theory that she worked at the liquor store, she was overcoming some struggles herself with alcohol, surveillance video from around that store at the time? Investigatively, would you start with some of the clientele at that store?
Yeah, I would. I would start talking to people who were other employees or coworkers to find out, patterns. A lot of people go to their local liquor store in patterns. They have these routines of things they do. And conversations they have. You get to know people intimately, especially in these more rural communities. So I would certainly be looking for patterns of behavior before she left of patrons and employees, and afterwards. I mean, if there was somebody who was coming in all the time and you could see they were speaking to her on a regular basis, and then all of a sudden, now that she's missing, that person's not showing up anymore, I'd say it's really important to find out who that person is. So yeah, for sure, there's a lot. If someone takes the time to start checking on patterns of people's behavior 2-3 even weeks or even a month before she left, and then the next couple of weeks after she was last seen, I think could possibly tell a story.
What is your message, Law, as you cover lots of missing person cases, to the family in this situation and their desperation more than a year after Brittany went missing, where they continue their search? They've been looking on the ground. I mentioned there were canine searches. They looked from helicopters from above. But after this much time has passed, what do families do?
Well, one thing they have to do is start working on a reward fund. I don't know if one has been, developed yet or being cultivated, but start working on a reward fund. Be as much of an advocate for her as possible. Do not let her story be lost in the ocean of so many other missing people. The ones that have the most success in being recovered, reunited, found are the ones with the most advocacy, people talking about the story all the time. And this starts with the family. The families need to stay on law enforcement. They need to stay on the district attorney. They need to stay on the local media and do shows like this as well, and share information about her, so people can start forming a personal connection to her, because she sounds like a really great young lady who has a really big heart and very friendly. And I think people will identify with her quite a bit. And the story is very interesting. Everybody likes a compelling story, and I know there's a lot of people following this. So they need to be hopeful. Don't give up. Don't act like this is the end of it. You're never going to know. You can know, but you have to keep advocating all the time.
Yeah. Does it become a resource issue for police after this much time has passed, and in some other cases even more time has passed? How do they continue to investigate with no clues coming forward?
Well, unfortunately, most of the time they just sit around and wait for tips. I don't want to take anything away from what the local police have done. I followed this to a smaller extent, and I do believe the police have done all they can based on their experience and their resources. They seem to have pulled out all the stops. They're doing a good job. They're keeping the community informed. It sounds like they're open to speaking with the family, but it's just really tough. It's very tough. They're going to have to wait for tips to come in, and if that's the case, this can take a long time. I really believe that they might want to even open up the door to other agencies coming in, maybe a state agency to look at the case, or some other professionals who are very familiar with missing person cases to take another look at this, because sometimes there's a piece of information just sitting there that maybe based on skill level or experience, someone has missed. So it'd be great if somebody could take another look at everything and see if there was something that was obvious that hadn't been followed up on. We talk about her phone as well. There's been no information about if the phone pinged or what kind of communication she was having with anyone leading up to her disappearance, whether it be weeks before or even minutes before she left the house. We haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, and that leads me to some viewer questions that we have in regards to the evidence and the phone. Law, I want to have you answer some of these as broadly as you can. I know that you've been looking into the case, but this question comes from Barbara, and she wants to know, how can they know how she left the house? Her SIM card was found at the boyfriend's house. If she was talking to her mom and he thought she was calling her to pick her up, the SIM card would have been in the phone at the time. How do they investigatively explore the digital evidence in a case like this?
Well, the phone has, tracking on it through the phone carrier. So they can just serve a warrant to the phone carrier to get all the GPS and everything on the phone. It just seems like nobody's really looking into the phone as much as they should, realistically. I mean, there's been no pings or anything like that, or any data recovered from the phone. I can't imagine why it hasn't been shared with anybody at this point.
The phone is incredibly critical. I've got another question from Tony on the district attorney, saying that we know that she left the house. How does he know that? Is that on a camera, or is it because that was what the boyfriend said? They go based off of the evidence, right? They are not theorizing in a case like this.
Well, yeah, they do go based on the evidence. And I would say the same thing that maybe many of the people in the audience would say, is we don't know she left the house. I'm not quite sure she did leave the house. I'm not quite sure that her purse and keys weren't staged in her vehicle to make it look like she was attempting to leave the house. We have no proof of that whatsoever. That's why I said earlier, they need to start looking closer to her home, to the property. She could be there somewhere on the property for all we know. But there's no fact of the matter that I've heard to prove she left the house. When they've talked about video cameras, from local residents or businesses, if she was on foot, that may have seen her. They may or may not have seen her, but it doesn't sound like any have seen her. So did she really ever leave the property? We may never know. Yeah,
and the big clue to that, and you brought this up earlier, this is a question from Lisa asking, why is it that we're just hearing that her wallet and her purse were in her Jeep? I understand that her car had not been working for a while. Could it have been planted there? Is that an investigative alley that they would go down?
Well, it's hard for me to say what they would go down. I would hope so. It seems like such an obvious thing. It sounds like, to me, there's a lot of what's being shared with the public is that the local police and the district attorney are taking whatever they're hearing from witnesses or people that have seen her last at face value and in good faith, and then saying, well, we got a lot of consistencies within the stories, but we don't know of any people that they've spoken to outside of the boyfriend. We don't know who was at the residence during the time frame leading up to Brittany leaving, who lives there, what their criminal background is, what kind of interactions with police have been at that location before. We don't know anything. And this is what's concerning, when you're a member of your community and you start thinking that a woman who was so friendly, worked at your local liquor store, was building relationships and friendships with people and seemed really, really just liked and just like a really great spirit. What happened? Because I'd be a little concerned that there could be somebody on the loose in the local neighborhood there who may have something to do with this. Yeah, beyond the mystery of her disappearance, you do have that larger question. Is the public at risk right now? What is the threat to the public? Maybe time to re-interview some people that were spoken to early on in this case. Law, thank you for digging into it with us. We'll stay in touch as we continue to pursue leads. And in this case, it may take somebody coming forward who knows something, and we'll see if
if a reward will help on that effort. Law Olmsted, thank you for your time as always. Now, through Brittany's family, we did reach out to the boyfriend, but he declined to be interviewed. Since there is no evidence pointing to his involvement in her disappearance, the family is respecting his privacy and not revealing his identity to the media. The district attorney stressing to us anyone with information should call a tip line that's been set up in Brittany's disappearance. That's 508-453-7589. Again, Brittany T, 35 years old, last seen in January of 2023 in the suburbs of Boston. All right, want to take a closer look at our case for next week. This is the missing case we'll be focusing on a week from now. Take a look.
The nucleus. He was like the center of it all. He started the cousins' days and the cousins' parties and the cousin group chat.
The glue. That is how Craig Lyle's cousins describe him, a church choir director from Michigan who vanished more than 3 years ago. Faith was Craig's cornerstone. His family says Craig was always the center of attention.
If you've ever seen Craig perform that, that's showtime at the Apollo.
Police have named Craig's boyfriend a person of interest in his disappearance, and we have learned police have given that boyfriend a polygraph. The results of that test and a closer look at the days and weeks leading up to Craig Lyle's disappearance. Join us next week as we investigate the mysterious disappearance in case of Craig. And if you have a missing case you think we should be looking into, send it to us at newsnationnow.com/missing. Many of the cases we cover come from you. And make sure you check out our missing podcast each and every week. I'm Marni Hughes in Chicago. As always, thank you for being part of each of our missing cases. You play an important role. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you back here next week. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.